Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today to Izzy the Tech Guy. Today, we're going to start our course on data analyst. First, to start off, we're going to go ahead and discuss what does a data analyst do. And I know that word is thrown around a lot, so we want to go ahead and introduce what does a data analyst do. A couple of items we will be covering is the roles, the tasks, the obstacles that a data analyst will face, and tools they use, and the skills you need. And finally, we will discuss the pay range. So let's go ahead and talk about the roles. So there's several different roles. You can be a data analyst one, you can be a data analyst two, will be like kind of like mid junior level, and then you have a senior level, and then you have management level. Usually that's how it's broken down. I'm not going to go into data science, data scientist role, but that is data analysts can lead into that role. Some of the tasks that you will be required to do is pretty simple. We can break it down to you just need to have your data tell a story or answer a question that the business have that your answer or your story will drive them to make a decision. That's summarizing it as simple as possible. That's what a data analyst is required to do. Some of the obstacles that you might face, lack of data. When you're dealing with data, that's the biggest thing is lack of data, or the data not being clean, or the end user not understanding, well, yourself not understanding data, or the customer that you're either answering or presenting the data to not understanding the data. So those are some of the obstacles you can face, and of course the tools you'll need. And again, in a moment, we'll look at a couple of job posting to kind of back up what I'm saying here. The tools you'll mainly need, you need to know Python. You'll need to have Power BI. You'll need to have some type of SQL. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have SQL, but there's ways you can get around that. But you need to have some kind of either SQL Studios or DB or something like that to query the data. And then in some times you can even do it in Excel. I've seen several data analysts that have done it in Excel. Like if you're working with the accounting department, they tend to like Excel more, spreadsheets. So you can get away with that. Google Sheets, some companies use that. So those are three things. And one skill I'll say that you need to know or to have, you need to have domain knowledge. That's out of all of these, the biggest thing to be a successful data analyst is to have domain knowledge. Knowing stuff about the data, understanding your data, that is going to help you and drive you further in your career. Now let's talk about pay range. I know a lot of people will throw different pay ranges, and the biggest thing about pay range, it all depends on where you're located at. So if you're located like on the West Coast, more than likely you're going to make more. East Coast, in the southern states, probably not that much. So let's go ahead and jump into it, and this will give you more, like kind of back up what I'm saying. So one posting here, this is for a fraud data analyst. And I like this because it kind of specify where the domain is actually at. So this is, you need to have some type of understanding in fraud, and this is LexisNexis, and this is in the UK. So they kind of tell you about the business, about the team, about the role. Experienced data analysts to investigate suspicious behavior. This will provide new insights to customers, leading to immediate. So it goes on and on. It talks about the role. Now, responsibility. So, conduct in-depth review of complex fraud cases. So again, this is where the domain knowledge comes into play. And then here's what you need to know: the actual skills. I classify domain knowledge as a skill. Some might, but I definitely do. So again, SQL and Python. Most of the time, if you know SQL, you'll be good enough. Python is coming up strong, and I definitely feel like if you want to go further in your career, you definitely want to know Python. Looking through here, or just false. And delivery. I'm just looking to see if there's any kind of dashboards. Yep, here it is. Building dashboards. That's another thing I didn't mention before, but you need to be able to build a dashboard. Basically, it's a visualization that shows you shows the customer, the end user, of what you're trying to show with the data. And then we'll go into depth in later episodes. We'll definitely go into more details about how to format a dashboard, and we'll start from beginning to the end, from getting the data, massaging the data, and presenting it. So dashboard, they don't really tell you here, I don't think, what type of tools they use for a dashboard, but you know you'll have dashboard, and it goes into other things like, hey, proficiency or professionalism, it goes on. And then here goes some requirements. Again, here's a domain knowledge, fraud, SQL, Python. Here it is, BI tools like Superset. I never heard this before, but Power BI, Tableau. These two are the key players, I would say, in this industry. A lot of people use Power BI. A lot of people use Tableau. For me, I wasn't a big Microsoft fan, but Power BI, I would say, is much better than Tableau, and from my personal use. I mean, they all have their kinks and quirks, but for me, I like Power BI a little bit more. Okay, so you see here they go talking about like type of systems that you need to be aware of. So that's one thing. Like if you want to like transition to data analyst, I feel that's one of in the whole ecosystem of the tech field. I feel this position is one of the best things to transfer in if you have the domain knowledge. Because SQL, Python, and Power BI, if you come from like having the domain knowledge, those will be easy. In my opinion, these are easy to learn. Once you start doing them over and over, and you can tweak it differently to get certain filters you want, that's the easy part. But having the data, I see a lot of data analysts, they struggle with that. Having the data explain the story. If you have the domain knowledge, you're going to be able to do that easily versus someone that has a lot of experience with SQL and Python. Attention to detail. This is key right here. Attention to detail. Later on, you'll see sometimes the data kind of shows up funky, and you might think this is what it's showing, but you end up not displaying what you're really showing, or you get duplicates. So yeah, attention to detail is important. So they don't necessarily show what the pay is, but for a position like this, in my personal opinion, I think it could be from anywhere from, well, this is in the UK, but I'll say in America, this position might be between 60 to about 100. I mean, that is a big range, but that's what I'll say to expect something like that from 60 to 100,000. So the next thing we'll go to a senior data analyst, and this is for Capital One. So senior, it goes in, talks about the business intelligence, develop tools, techniques, metrics. Again, here's that word dashboard. So if you look at these, you're going to start seeing the same thing being repeated over and over. Dashboard, data visualization, data management. So they go on. Here it is. This time they threw it R, Spark, SQL. So there's a little bit more here. Again, this is higher level. So this is, yeah, senior data analyst, exactly. So that's why there's like, hey, scripting experience. Basically Python and SQL to pull the data, to play around with the data and kind of put it in the way you want to. Here it is right here, experience in data warehouse. If you know SQL, you should understand what this means right here. But this is because data warehouse is where the data is housed. Okay, and here's another thing that we didn't see in the last one. So experience with basically cloud, AWS, Amazon Web Service. So we want you to have cloud experience. And in here they speak a little bit about the education part of it, a bachelor's degree plus at least 5 years of experience in data analytics, and currently has a process of obtaining a master's degree. Interesting. So with this asking for a master's degree, the pay, I would definitely expect it to be higher. Again, this is senior data analyst. At least 2 years with Python or SQL. So you see, like far as like the coding aspect of it, they're not asking for that much. But 2 years experience working with, okay, this is just kind of like if you're in a development, like you have different types of development process. Like you have a waterfall, agile. So this is what this is really talking about, but not too important. Again, they mentioned AWS. Okay, let's go on. And now let's go, if we go down here to the pay range. So you see here for this senior position in Virginia, which cost of living is a little bit higher than like if you look into the southern states like Florida, Alabama. So 109 to 124,000 for the senior data analyst. For Richmond, Virginia, so it's about 99 to 113,000. So for this position here, this is, I'll say, in thinking about it being Virginia, I'll say this is kind of on the lower ends. Maybe it's because Richmond, I'm not too familiar with this area. But for a senior data analyst, this is in a range, I'll say. I have seen some senior data analysts get up to the 150s. So we have two more roles we want to look at here. Principal data analyst. If we go through here, again, this is just mainly about the company, so that's why I'm skipping through this. Again, so just quickly looking at this, this is exactly the same The only difference is the years are asking to be a little bit more, and if you see the pay is a little bit higher. So this Capital One company, yep, this is Capital One. So I'll say their pay is on par, pretty decent. If you can get closer to 145, that would be nice. But yeah, this looks good to me as far as the pay range, and then again asking the same thing but just more years of experience. And if you look here, 115 to 132. So this is what the senior position was kind of asking for, a little bit higher. And now we're going to get to the final phase, is the management position. So again, data analyst, same company, Capital One. Let's go in here. Mining data. Okay, so this is a little bit different. And as you get more experience, you'll kind of understand what these lingos are. But again, it's almost the same, but this one seems, oh, they want a PhD. So not even looking at the salary, I'm going to say you might be close to getting to the twos for this position. Just looking at the requirements that they want, master's degree, 7 years of professional data analysis, work experience, probably so Python. Okay, now you see here, this is the difference. So they want you to have experience with Tableau. And if we looked at this one, I don't think they asked for that. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Yeah, so they weren't asking. So that's interesting. So it seems like the management would be, the task of creating the dashboard would be mainly on the manager's role. So again, AWS. So I'll let you know they're using mainly AWS. There are other ones out there like Azure, Snowflake, but it seems like they're mainly using AWS. And okay, so it's less than what I was thinking. So about 158 to 180,000, 140. Which for a manager, I mean, it depends how big the company is. For a company like Capital One, I think this is kind of on the lower end, in my opinion. But for like a smaller company, or not even a small company, but not a company not as big as Capital One, I would say this makes sense. And one thing, I wonder if there's any bonus that's involved in here, but for the most part, like you've seen the qualification you need, you've seen like the job description. Here we can read a little bit here, but yeah, just go out there if you're interested in this role, data analyst. Go out there, kind of just read through some job descriptions. I would recommend going to the actual websites and reading the job description to make sure it makes sense to you, and that can kind of help you gauge how close you are to that position. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Please like, comment, subscribe, share with someone that you know that's interested in this, and then next episode we'll dive in and start setting up to start our journey on to become a data analyst or be equipped with the tools to be a data analyst. Thank you for tuning in today. Have a good day.